You previously asked me what would happen if a planet imploded and simultaneously exploded at the same time. This is an argument you and I have had for about, 7 years or more. You seem to be convinced that if a planet implodes and explodes, then everybody's happy, nothing happens. Obviously, I need to prove how incredibly wrong you are. Because that's what friends are for, Ted. That's what friends are for. I have decided to accomplish this by dropping a whole lot of knowledge on you. And then we never have to have this argument ever again. Are you ready for this hot potato of knowledge drop? First of all, planets cannot and will not ever explode. Literally, scientifically, impossible. I will get into the details of this more at the end of this video, because first I need to explain so many other things so that my explanation even makes any sense. Let's think about things that can explode. Stars! They explode more often than you think. To keep this all in the realm of scientifically possible, I'm going to explain to you what happens when a star explodes. There's all sorts of gas, mostly hydrogen, floating around in space. Because of the pull of protons, hydrogens start to collect together to form spheres. Through the process of nuclear fusion, hydrogen starts to fuse together to form helium. Nuclear fusion is what gives the star its energy. Now, helium is heavier than hydrogen, so all of the helium starts to go in the center of the sphere. Then helium starts to fuse together to make carbon. Once again, carbon is heavier, so carbon goes to the center of the sphere. This process creates a whole lot of energy. Meanwhile, the core is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Now, what happens next depends upon the size of the star. If the star is smaller, the process stops at carbon, and the outside continues expanding. This is now known as a red giant. After it runs out of fuel, it stops expanding and actually shrinks and becomes what's known as a white dwarf. This is about the same size as Earth. However, this is not important. The important thing is, if a star is 3 times the size of our sun or bigger, the elements continue to fuse together until in the center is iron. In this climate, iron cannot fuse together, and so the process stops. Iron also does not produce any energy when it fuses together. Iron collects in the middle until it runs out of fuel. Meanwhile, the core is over 100 billion degrees Celsius. Once the entire center is filled with iron is so heavy it actually starts to collapse upon itself and gravity takes over until it explodes. The collapse and the explosion all happens within milliseconds. This explosion is called a supernova. Here's my argument, Ted. Stars implode and explode at the same time because the center is imploding while the outside is exploding. This explosion causes gamma rays to go flying out into space at the speed of light in different directions. Meanwhile, this explosion is so intense that it fuses more elements together, creating the heavier elements we have like gold. The remaining iron has just collapsed on itself, becomes a black hole. A black hole is so incredibly dense and heavy, and so much gravity is there that it pulls everything into it, including light, so light cannot even escape. So the answer is, if a star implodes and explodes at the same time, we get gamma rays, as well as an epic black hole that nothing can escape. This brings me back to planets. Now, why can't planets implode or explode? Because planets are made from exploding stars. Which, by the way, would be a fantastic title for my future memoirs, am I right? The hydrogen, helium, carbon, iron, gold, etc., is flying through space and starts to come together via gravity and the pull of protons. And yet again, they all start to form a sphere. So Earth is actually a bunch of pieces that came together after the Big Bang. And a million processes happened after that, we won't get into that. But once again, no planet has the potential to implode or explode, because it's kind of like when you light a match. When you light a match, you are causing the sulfur on top to burst into flame. After you blow out that fire, you can't relight a match that was already lit, right? Because all possible chemical reactions to cause the fire have already taken place. A planet's core is so incredibly stable, it can never explode or implode. However, if by some miracle of science, some complete lack of law of physics, if a planet imploded and exploded at the same time, my guess would be some parts would go hurling out into space and others would implode into a tiny, tiny dense ball. So now, Ted, if the Earth imploded and exploded at the same time, we would not just continue with our lives. Once again, Ted, I am right, you are wrong. Moving onward. I have been thinking of ways to spice up this new season of the Dick Ted to Deidre. I thought, let's have guest speakers. I am going to ask my friend Roque a question, and he is going to make the next video. Roque will then ask you a question, Ted, and it's back to your turn. So Roque, my question for you is, what inventions are in existence that you really wish were not in existence? Possibly things that make you angry? Possibly things that make the world a worse place? All I have left to say is, Intel naked.